Good morning, dear students. Welcome to our lesson. And first of all, let me congratulate you with the start of the autumn term of the study. So, let me introduce you myself. My full name is Meirbekov Akhlbek Kairatbekovich, and I will teach you Tildik Қарым-қатынас мәдениеті бойынша practicum, which is translated into language as a cross-cultural communication. So, before getting to our lecture, I would like you to introduce with the process and material of the course of our subject. I hope that you all know about tng3.iu.edu.kz base of our university, in which the teachers and the students have an online teaching process. So at this base we have all our personal portfolio, and in my portfolio I have a subject Tildik қарым-қатынас бойынша practicum, and I have already registered and logged in to my personal window. So I have chosen my subject to demonstrate you. So here, students, on the announcement of the course, you can learn more information about the author of the course, and you can get an annotation of the subject. You can have a glossary in which there are given terminologies and new words that are connected to the subject. And also we have a smart syllabus. So smart syllabus of the subject can easily help you to transfer to the necessary link of our subject. And also we have a PDF version of the syllabus confirmed with the Dean of the faculty. So here we have two PDF syllabus according to the specialty of the group. So, and also we have study program of the subject, and you can upload my personal biography if you want to get me know closer. Furthermore, you can find the lectures and the materials that are necessary for having an online courses. And here I wanted to show you nuance of the subject. You can upload your materials to the practical part of the lesson, and you can also download my lectures from this part of the base, and you can have an additional materials. So you can connect to the Zoom conference just clicking to this button, and you can have a screencast. Screencast are videos that are used as an additional material to the lecture. So at the end of each lesson you have to pass test, and also we have video lectures, and further you have to do the same process till the end of the course. So our course consists of 15 weeks. So at the end of the course you have to pass an final exam. Now let me introduce you with the syllabus. So your study language is English. This is the syllabus, the part of the syllabus which is confirmed with the stamp of the faculty, and we have a credit hours 5, ECTS 150, and on the following page you can easily see the themes of the subject or the themes of the lectures. And here in this part of the syllabus you can easily study collecting the scores of the subject. So your scores will be collected from the attendance of the lectures and seminar hours, and from being activity during the classes, and for uploading your additional or reply materials on our TNG base, and for your SIW works, I mean students self-individual work. Finally, we have come to our lecture. The first lecture of our course is what is language, which is dedicated to the language. Okay, let me introduce you with the plan of the lesson. On this lecture, we will study about the origin of language and the history of English and Kazakh language. So to the question, what is language? We can say that language is a set of symbols being used mainly for communication. The symbols may be spoken or written form. Language is an aspect of human behavior. In written form, it is a long-term record of knowledge from one generation to the next, while in spoken form, it is a means of communication. Language is the key aspect of human intelligence. So, the origin of language. Biologists refer to the modern human as Homo sapiens, Latin for wise man, but the possession of language is such an important part of the definition of the modern human that Homo loquens, it means talking man, would be an equally appropriate name. Since humans are the only creatures on earth that possess language, this system of communication must by necessity be younger than the split between the human lineage and that of our closest modern non-human relative. The split is generally assumed to have taken place 5 to 7 million years ago. The oldest creatures in the human lineage are called hominids, while the first individuals belonging to our own genus. Homo appeared about 2 million years ago. Few researchers, if any at all, believe language to be close to 2 million years old, but before we discuss in more detail the upper limit or the maximum age of language, let us take a closer look at the lower limit or the minimum age of language. The title for a language page is an anglicized form of the name used to refer to that language in that country. In most cases, the name corresponds to the ISO, International Organization of Standardization. This reference name associated with the ISO 639/3, where the users of the language have expressed a preference for a different name. For example, Ethnologue was generally following preference. In other cases, the primary name may be the most well-known English or anglicized Name associated with the language. Names are generally recorded using English spellings, though diacritical marks may be included. For some language names in Southern Africa, special symbols are used to represent the click sounds produced with the ingressive mouse air. The subtitle names the primary country for the language. When a language is spoken in more than one country, ethnologue designates one of the countries as primary, usually the country of origin of the language or the country where most of the language users are located. A complete language description contains the following elements. Follow the link for a full description of the element. Each language description includes only the elements for which information is known. For example, language identification gives the code assigned to the language by the ISO 639/3, plus a list of alternate or other names that have been used to refer to the language. The next one, population, gives the number of people in the country who use this language, plus the total number of users worldwide if it is used in multiple countries. These user populations are broken down into first and second language, although included may be monolingual population, ethnic population, and other comments about population. Location describes where the language users are located within the country. Language status gives level for the language in the country and describes the level of official recognition. If any language is associated with an officially recognized nationality or ethnic group, that association is reported. Classification provides the language classification. Dialects lists the names that have been used to refer to varieties of the language, as well as giving information about dialect relations in terms of intelligibility and lexical similarity with the other varieties if available. So dialects includes macro language membership in itself. Typology provides typological information, including brief description of basic word order, significant phonological, morphological, and syntactic features, and other matters of interest to linguists. Language use gives information about domains of use, age of speakers, and viability and patterns of use. The use of other languages by this language community and the use by others of this language as a second language. Language development gives information about literacy rates used in education, language documentation and development products, revitalization efforts, and language development agencies. Written form of the language. Writing gives information about writing systems and scripts used for the language. Other comments gives information identifying non-indigenous language and all additional information about the language or ethnic group, including primary religious affiliations. If the language is indigenous or established in other countries, sub-entries for these countries are listed at the bottom of the page. Information like the classification and typology, which is the same in every country, is not repeated in these sub-entries. Okay, our next part of our lecture is the history of the English language. The English language belongs to the West Germanic branch of the Indo-European family of languages. As you can see in this picture, so the history of English language passes through the main events in the history, like Celt migrations, Roman occupation, Germanic settlements, Viking invasions, Norman invasions, Renaissance mixing, empire imports, and so on. The closest unadopted living relatives of English are Scots and Frisian. Frisian is a language spoken by approximately 500,000 people in the Dutch province of Friesland, in nearby areas of Germany, and on a few islands in the North Sea. The history of the English language has traditionally been divided into three main periods: Old English 450 and 1100 Anno Domini, Middle English, you can see it here, between the 1100 1500, and Modern English. We divide Modern English in this presentation into two parts, like early one and late one. So Modern English begins with 1500. Over the centuries, the English language has been influenced by a number of other languages. So here in this picture you can observe the influences of other languages into English one. Old English during the 5th century Anno Domini, three Germanic tribes like Saxons, Angles, and Jutes came to the British Isles from various parts of the northwest Germany, as well as Denmark. And these tribes were warlike and pushed out most of the original Celtic-speaking inhabitants from England into Scotland, Wales, and Cornwall. One group migrated to the Brittany coast of France, where their descendants still speak the Celtic language of Breton today. Through the years, the Saxons, Angles, and Jutes mixed their different Germanic dialects. This group of dialects forms what linguists refer to as Old English or Anglo-Saxon. The word English was in Old English written like this one. And that word comes from the name of the Angles. The Angles were named from Ingle, their land of origin. Before the Saxons, the language spoken in what is now England was a mixture of Latin and various Celtic languages, which were spoken before the Romans came to Britain. So from the history we know that the Romans invaded Britain between 54 and 5 before Christ. The Romans brought Latin to Britain, which was part of the Roman Empire for over 400 years. Many of the words passed on from this era are those coined by Roman merchants and soldiers. Here you can observe the examples of the coined words by merchants and Roman soldiers. They include wine, wine, candle, candle, belt, wall, wall, language timeline. The British Library Board is a source of these examples. The influence of Celtic upon Old English was slight. In fact, very few Celtic words have lived on in the English language. But many of place and river names have Celtic origins. Kent, York, Dover, Cumberland, Thames, Avon, Trent, and Severn are the words of Celtic origins. The arrival of Saint Augustine in 597 and introduction of Christianity into the Saxon England brought more Latin words into the English language. They were mostly concerned with the naming of church, dignitaries, ceremonies, and etc. Some such as church, bishop, baptism, monk, Eucharist, and presbyter came indirectly through Latin from the Greek language. Around 878 AD, Danes and Norsemen, also called Vikings, invaded the country, and English got many Norse words into the language, particularly in the north of England. The Vikings, being Scandinavian, spoke a language, Old Norse, which in origin at least was just as Germanic as Old English. Words derived from Norse include sky, egg, cake, skin, and etc. The list is given in the presentation. The most famous work of that period is a heroic epic poem called Beowulf. It is the oldest known English poem, and it is notable for its length, 3,183 lines. Experts say that Beowulf was written in Britain more than 1,000 years ago. The name of the person who wrote it is unknown. Middle English, after William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, invaded and conquered England in 1066 with his armies and became king. He brought his nobles who spoke French to be the new government. The Old French took over as the language of the court, administration, and culture. But Latin was mostly used for written language, especially that of the church. Meanwhile, the English language, as the language of the now lower class, was considered a vulgar tongue. By about 1200, England and France had split. English changed a lot because it was mostly being spoken instead of written for about 300 years. The use of Old English came back, but with many French words added. This language is called Middle English. Most of the words embedded in the English vocabulary are words of power, such as crown, castle, court. The list is given on the presentation. So, because the English underclass cooked for the Norman upper class, the words for most domestic animals are English, like it is given on the presentation: ox, cow, calf, sheep, swine, and deer. While the words for the meats derived from them are French ones, like beef, veal, mutton, pork, bacon, venison, and so on. The Middle English is also characterized for the beginning of the Great Vowel Shift. It was a massive sound change affecting the long vowels of English. Basically, the long vowels shifted upwards. That is, a vowel that used to be pronounced in one place in the mouth would be pronounced in a different place higher up in the mouth. The great vowel shift occurred during the 15th to 18th century. The most famous example of Middle English is of course Geoffrey Chaucer with its work The Canterbury Tales. The work is a collection of stories about a group of 30 people who travel as pilgrims to Canterbury, England. The portraits that he paints in his tales gives us an idea of what life was like in 14th century England. The history of the English language really started with the arrival of 3 Germanic tribes who invaded Britain during the 5th century. These tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, crossed the North Sea from what today is Denmark and northern Germany. At that time, the inhabitants of Britain spoke a Celtic language, but most of the Celtic speakers were pushed west and north by the invaders, mainly into what is now Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. From this picture or from this geographical map, you can observe the original territory of Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Finally, we have come to the Kazakh language section. Before getting down or explaining the illustration on the presentation, I would like to speak about the history of Kazakh language. Kazakh language or Kazakh tili is a member of the Turkish branch of the Altaic language family. Like all Turkish languages, it is believed to have descended from Chagatai, an extinct Turkish language which once served as lingua franca in Central Asia. The word Chagatai, as it is given on the map, refers to the Chagatai Khanate, the western part of the Mongol Empire. In the 14th century, the Chagatai Khanate was conquered by Timur, a native of Samarkand. Timur's successors were later ousted from the Chagatai Khanate by the Uzbeks. The Kazakhs originated as dissident Uzbeks during the same period. Both groups became part of the Soviet Union in 1917, and in 1991, after the fall of Soviet Union, Kazakhstan became an independent country. Kazakhstan shares borders nowadays with Russia, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, and also adjoins a large part of the Caspian Sea. Kazakh is the state language of the Republic of Kazakhstan. It is estimated that it is spoken by 64.4% of the countries. It is almost about 18 million population, with its use strongly promoted by the government. Even though Kazakh is the official language of Kazakhstan, Russian plays a dominant role, designated as the language of inter-ethnic communication. It continues to serve as the official language used in everyday business by an overwhelming majority of the population. Let's talk with the alphabet system of Kazakh language. Kazakh used Arabic script from the 10th 20th century. The Kazakh language was based on Latin script in 1929-1940. The transition to the Cyrillic alphabet occurred in 1940. The Latin alphabet is currently used by most Kazakh diasporas abroad. So we can conclude that in the history of Kazakh language development, 3 alphabets were used to write the Kazakh language. They are Arabic script, Latin, and Cyrillic one. The Cyrillic script is used in Kazakhstan and Mongolia. The switch from a Latin alphabet to a Cyrillic one was likely in an attempt to distance the Soviet Kazakhstan from Turkey. This was likely in part due to weakening Turkish-Soviet relations and the Turkish Straits crisis. In an effort to consolidate its national identity, Kazakhstan started a phased transition from the Cyrillic alphabet to the Latin alphabet in 2017. The Kazakh government drafted a 7-year process until the full implementation of the new alphabet, subdivided into various phases. Revised version of the 2017 Latin alphabet of Kazakh language was announced in February 2018. Presidential Decree 637 of 19th February 2018 amends the decree, and the use of apostrophes was discontinued and replaced with diacritics and diagraphs. In April 2021, the Latin script for the Kazakh language was presented to the public. It was well received. Elementary schools will start using only the new Latin script from 2023. The transition is expected to be completed by 2031. After the order of the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kasım-Jomart Kemalievich Tokayev, to improve the approved alphabet based on the Latin script as of October 21, 2019, scientists of the Orthographical Working Group conducted a scientific and practical testing of the approved alphabet. The Latin alphabet, or the Latin language, is the most widely used alphabetic writing system in the world. It is used by approximately 70% of all countries, making it an essential part of communicating across the globe, especially in terms of technology, business, science, and education. Currently, many databases and software programs don't support the Cyrillic text, making it very difficult for IT and technology experts. On a practical level, those of us who use the Latin alphabet to type on smartphones will know how less cumbersome it is to use than Cyrillic. Using Latin writing system is essential in today's world. International business and financial exchanges takes place using the Latin alphabet. It is therefore completely understandable that Kazakhstan, a country that is keen to enhance its international business and investment reputation, is looking to adopt measures that ensure its modernization and competitiveness. The transfer into Latin alphabet should be welcomed by business people and investors both in Kazakhstan and globally. Switching to the Latin alphabet will undoubtedly lead to more commercial cooperation between Kazakhstan and other nations. Looking regionally, the change will also bring Kazakh in line with other Turkish languages, such as those spoken in Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Uzbekistan, which are also use the Latin alphabet. It is also expected to make it easier for international investors to do business in Kazakhstan, which will contribute to the overall development of the nation and increase the standard of living of its citizens. And at the end of the lecture, we decided to talk about two types of languages. The first one is natural language and the second one is constrained language. So you will ask a question, what are they? What for we are learning? To the question, what are they? They are the types of the language that differentiates or that is being differentiated in our modern life. So natural language are languages that we use in our communication. It doesn't matter whether we speak in Kazakh or whether we speak in English, Chinese, Deutsch, French, or any other languages that exist on our world. They are all natural languages. So natural languages can be spoken and written form. So what is constrained language then? If we have distinguished it, if we have given the meaning to the natural language, what kind of language are there except those which we use in our spoken and written communication? Constrained language are the language of the special or limited vocabulary designed for restricted types of communication. Example, nowadays we have mobile phones, notebooks, netbooks, or any other gadgets, but they all have their own constrained language which is apt to open any concrete programs or applications. Constrained languages are the languages of the programming, like Java, Script, or NC layer. By the way, NC layer is a language socket that is necessary for eGov portal. And to make my words about constrained programming much more trustful, I decided to demonstrate a video, a short video, in which the constrained programming language is defined in a concrete way.
In computer science, constraint programming is a programming paradigm wherein relations between variables are stated in the form of constraints. Constraints differ from the common primitives of imperative programming languages in that they do not specify a step or sequence of steps to execute, but rather the properties of a solution to be found. This makes constraint programming a form of declarative programming. The constraints used in constraint programming are of various kinds. Those used in constraint satisfaction problems, for example OR B is true. Those solved by the simplex algorithm, for example X, 5, and others. Constraints are usually embedded within a programming language or provided via separate software libraries. Constraint programming can be expressed in the form of constrained logic programming, which embeds constraints into a logic program. This variant of logic programming is due to Jafar and Lassay. who extended in 1987 a specific class of constraints that were introduced in Prolog 2. The first implementations of constrained logic programming were Prolog 3, CLP, R, and CHIP. Instead of logic programming, constraints can be mixed with functional programming, term rewriting, and imperative languages. Programming languages with built-in support for constraints include OZ, functional programming, and Kaleidoscope, imperative programming.
Thanks for enjoying the video, dear students. We have finished with the lecture. What is language? So I hope you enjoyed my knowledge that I tried to send you. And if you have any comments about my lecture, you can download it or you can watch it from the YouTube channels and leave your comments, your advices, or your tips about the given lesson. So thanks a lot for participating. I wish you best. Good luck.